Hello everyone and welcome to the class. Today we are talking all about Apple Mail tips, tricks, and advice. This is one of those classes where you might think it's really simple, but we have a ton of different things that we're going to be going over today. We are live right now. We have 500 people tuning in from literally all over the globe. For any of you out there who are watching this class after the fact, if you'd ever like to take one of our live classes, they are a free public service. You can find out more by going to our website at pcclassesonline.com. One thing you might want to do to help you with the schedule is there's a newsletter that we put out once a week. You can sign up for it. It's right at the top of the homepage. Well, not the very tippy top, but anyways, it's right there. It takes 2 seconds to sign up. And no, we don't sell your information to anyone, so don't worry about that. So we're talking about Apple Mail. And what I did is before I started this class, I threw out a few poll questions at our live audience to see, kind of gauge their knowledge and figure out what things we might need to spend more time on than others. First thing I want to do is talk about one of the things that seems to confuse the most people, which is there are two different types of email technology out there. One of them is referred to as POP, the other is referred to as iMAP. The difference is iMAP syncs. So for those of you out there who have problems where your emails do not sync, where you have, let's say you have a Mac, an iPhone, and an iPad, and you go through and you delete 100 messages on your computer, but then you go to your iPad and they're all still there. That is a sign that you are using a POP email account. One of my little pieces of advice that I give all of my clients who I work with privately is that it's really kind of ridiculous in 2015 to be with a POP email service. You really need to be with iMAP, especially those of you who use email in business. Because after all, not only can you not see what messages you've deleted, you can't see what you've responded to. And if you're anything like me with my ADD-soaked brain, I can't remember, did I already respond to that person or not? And then I end up sending 5 responses. So it's a good idea to consider switching to an iMAP account. I'll give you a few examples. iCloud.com is one of them. Gmail is another very popular one. There are other services out there that used to be POP that are now support iMAP, but I tend to kind of steer some of my clients away from. Basically, the two universal ones that I tend to say work for most people are either iCloud.com or Gmail. It just tends to be the difference as far as which one do I recommend over the other is if you already have an Apple ID, it might be easier to use Gmail, okay, because it can get kind of confusing otherwise. So for most people, it's going to end up being Gmail, but iCloud is another good alternative. So I have just basically a million bullet points here on my screen. I'm just going to kind of shoot through them and show you all these great little tips and tricks. So here we go. Now please keep in mind that all the email addresses you're about to see are all fake, so don't bother trying to send an email to any of them. First thing is I want to give you 2 great tricks to take the people who have sent you emails and add them into your saved contacts. That way you can respond to them or you can write to them very easily, not just from your computer, but if you're using iCloud, which hopefully you are, then you can do it very quickly from those devices as well. So I'm going to use myself here as an example, okay? This is just a link I just sent to myself for people who wanted to give a contribution to what we do. So if you get an email from someone, forgive the fact that it has my middle initial here twice, it might be a little hard for some of you who are here live right now to see this, but when you put your cursor over someone's email address in the message, there's this little caret icon. It's like a downward pointing arrow. If you click on that, with one click, you can hit, I'm already in it. Let's do a different one. YouTube, okay? You can hit add to contacts. Really fast way. It saves it into your computer. If you're using iCloud, it's also now going to be in your phone and your iPad as well. Very good trick. Now, the other thing you may want to consider doing, and I'm going to have to blur this out, I know, in post-production, is you've probably been sending email for a while. I did a poll question earlier, and I think it was maybe 80% of the people who are here have already been using Apple Mail. You have other people who you've corresponded with who you have not saved, but there's a very easy way with one click to add them, once again, into your contacts. See up here at the very top, we have File, Edit, View. I want you to go to Window. And here under Window, the 5th item down is Previous Recipients. This is going to get you access to every single person you have previously corresponded with. Okay? So it's going to bring up this giant list. Now, one thing you do need to keep in mind here, and again, sorry, it's going to be blurred out for those of you who are watching this after the class, is that this is also going to include if you have misspelled an email address. It doesn't see the difference between right and wrong. So if you meant to send someone an email that ended with @gmail.com and you typed in gmail, com, okay, that mistake is going to be there as well. So just be aware of that. One thing you should know, whenever you see, these rows right here, okay, where it has name, email, columns, name, email, last used, okay? What this means is that when you click on these, it's going to sort it by that method. There's also this other one right here next to where it says name, and if you click on it, okay, it's going to show you people who are already in your contacts and people who are not already in your contacts, okay? Yeah, of course, now I got the spinning pinwheel of death. Anyways, dear Tim Cook, what's going on? Okay, let's go back into that. But what my point that I wanted to show you there, let's go right back to where we were, is that if someone here is not in your contacts, you can click on their name, and with one click at the bottom right, you can hit Add to Contacts. Very easy, and that will be saved. The other thing I want to mention here is, have you ever had this problem where you go to type someone's email address and it brings up the wrong email address? That's also from this list. So let's say this person here, whose info is going to be blurred out in post-production. Okay, let's say this was a bad email address or maybe an old email address. If you click Remove from List, that person's information will no longer show up. It will not be a suggested contact. Okay, good little trick to be aware of. Next thing I want to do is show you how to create a signature. Okay, this is really great for business. To do this, and by the way, I apologize in advance, we are going to be spending a lot of time here. We're going to go into where it says Mail at the top left. Second item down is Preferences. Okay, and we have all these different buttons here. We're going to go into Signatures, which is the second to the last one here. Okay, and I want to show you how to create a new signature. The easiest way to do it is hit the little plus symbol down here at the bottom. Okay, and it's going to usually just kind of put in a default email address and name. It's just whatever you've told it is your name. But you can delete this info and you can put in whatever you want. For example, I know a lot of people, want to put, of course, their phone number. So they'll put 555-555-5555. Very popular phone number these days. You can put in your website address. Okay, if you do that and the person clicks on it, it will go to the web. It'll be an active link. One of the things I want to just kind of warn you about, something that has been popular in the past, some people still like it. Personally, I'm not a fan. Yes, it is possible to copy and paste graphics into this. The problem is it's going to show every single outgoing message as having an attachment. So it can be a pain for you. It can also be a pain for people who you're sending it to, because if they go to sort through your messages and look for the email that had a legitimate attachment, like a document, it's going to be very difficult to find, because every single email that you've ever sent them is going to appear as having an attachment. So my advice is to probably stay away from that. If you want to change up the font, what you can do is you can highlight this text and secondary click. So for those of you with a laptop, you're going to click with 2 fingers present on your trackpad, or if you want, you can just hold the control key on your keyboard and click. Okay, and you can go in here to font and you can have it show the fonts, and you can, change it to whatever you want. Okay. Another little trick I thought I'd show you there. And what that's going to do, let me follow through on that. What that's going to do is we're going to be able to make this appear at the bottom of every new message. Now, to make it do it automatically, there's 2 extra steps that you need to do here. What you're going to do is you're going to need to drag, in this case mine's called Signature 2. I'm going to need to drag this and drop it into whichever email address I'm using. So I'll use Gmail here as the example. I'm going to drag it and drop it. See, now it says 1 signature. There's still one more step. Click on where it says your account here, and below it says choose signature. This is the part that makes it automatic. So hit signature number 2. And if I close this window out and create a new message, there it is. So you just put your message above that. Okay, that's a little bit about creating a signature. For those of you who have questions about that, we can come back to that later on. The next thing I want to mention is a great trick for those of you who are emailed forms and need to add a signature to that form. Now, what a lot of people will do at this point is they will print out the email, they'll sign it, they'll scan it back into their computer, and then send it. There is a much, much easier way to do this. And I keep forgetting to do this part ahead of time, so give me 2 seconds to just whip up a document that I can use as an example here. That was from showing how to dictate. Okay, so let's just put together a fake informative letter. We're going to save this as a PDF. So PDF is a very common type of file format. Basically what a PDF does is it's basically an image of a document. But the point is that it's locked. So a lot of times when you're dealing with medical forms, something like that, it's usually going to be a PDF. So I have here on my desktop now an untitled document, and I just want you to kind of pretend that this was something that someone emailed to me, okay, that needs my signature. So I'm going to double click on it, and it's going to open in preview. If you go to do this and it does not open in preview, you can secondary click, and you'll see here we have open with. Okay, that allows you to change what opens it. This is especially useful for those of you who use Adobe Reader. Okay, Adobe Reader kind of takes over. With this, you can switch it back to preview, which, by the way, personally, I'm a bigger fan of. So pretend this is a medical form, and I need to sign my signature right here. Okay, so here's what you do, and I'm going to actually do it with you right now. So you're going to take out a blank piece of paper, and you're going to sign your name. Very simple, right? I need to unlock my webcam in just a moment. So here's what you're going to do. See here at the very top of the document, we have this little toolbox icon. You're going to click on that. It kind of gives you this little drop down. And check this out right here. See this one that looks a little bit like a signature? Well, that's exactly what that is. Ignore what's going to pop up. Okay? Oh, never mind. So what you can do here is you can actually sign your name on your trackpad. I don't recommend it. Use your camera. Okay? So forgive me, I haven't shaved this morning. I should have thought of this ahead of time. Hi, everyone. All right, so here we have a piece of paper, signature. So you might be able to see there is, I'm going to try to trace it out. There's a thin blue line right here, okay? So you want to make sure that when you hold the piece of paper up to your webcam, you want to make sure that it's right on that line. So here we go. Let's try to do it. It's not my real signature, by the way. Now, this is the tricky part, is being able to do this and also see line. I'll give you a little preview. I don't know if that did it or not. Sorry, very, very hard for me to do this with my angle. There we go. And when you're done, hit done. Okay, it cut it off there because I was stretching. So what it's going to do at this point is it's saved that signature to your computer, so you no longer have to print out that document. Okay? So all you need to do is when you need a signature, just go to this icon and click on that signature. And check it out. I can resize it by grabbing any of these corners. Okay? So I can make it as big or small as I want. And that is legal. That's a legal signature. So at this point, you just save this document and email it back to the person. So there, I just saved you a ton of paper. For those of you who have those kind of things that you have to do. Okay, let's get out of that. Let me open up my notes here. By the way, the only reason why you saw a bunch of like little debris around my signature is my notes are on the other side and they bled through. So ignore that. Next thing I want to do is show you how to use rules in Apple Mail. So let's go in, let's go back to Mail. And we're going to go back into Preferences. Now, there's a whole bunch of different types of rules out there that people use this for, and I have to be very broad when I'm explaining how this works, but I am going to give you the example that I tend to think really this works actually very well for, which is Viagra. So for those of you who get junk mail, which is, hold on, let me tally it up, everyone, this is a great trick to try to filter out some of that junk mail, and I'm going to actually delete it because I'm going to recreate it. So you go here into Rules, and you're going to hit Add New Rule. And you can name it whatever you want. I'm going to actually call it Viagra. Okay. And so what you're going to do is say if an email meets these terms and conditions, this is what happens automatically. So a lot of people out there get these stupid Viagra emails. They're junk, of course. So what you can do is tell the email program that if it detects the word Viagra in the subject, to automatically move it to the trash. So here's how you do it. So this first column right here, okay, you have all these different types of things that you can set. So in this case, I'm going to say if the subject contains the word Viagra. And what you might want to do is a lot of these companies now, what they'll do to get around this is they are purposefully misspelling the word Viagra. So you might want to, try a few different versions of this. And you can do as many as you want. So I'm going to say, instead of Viagra, what can I say that I can get away with? Viagra. I don't know. I'm just coming up with examples here. You can say automatically move the message, or you can say delete the message, or you could say move the message to the trash. Okay? Whatever. You can do either. Saying delete is just fine as well. Okay? And so automatically that's going to just take place. Boom, it's going to just be gone. Other things that people use this for I know executives that I've worked with who get just a ton of different emails. Some of them, what they like to do is if an email has an attachment or if it has an image, they'll put it into a special folder, something like that, which I'm going to show you in just a second here. Actually, that's next on my list. But you can really do whatever you want, okay? So it's a good trick for avoiding some junk mail. I'll give you a few other junk tricks in a little bit. Next one we're going to talk about is creating a mailbox and a smart mailbox and what's the difference between the two. So an example, let me delete this so I can recreate it. An example of a smart mailbox that a lot of people like is just show me email that came in today. Okay? It's not moving messages, it's just a different way to organize them. It's a different way to find them. So what we're going to do for this is if you look at the bottom left corner of my Mac, there's this little plus symbol, okay? And this is a fairly universal symbol in all the Apple applications, whether it's contacts or calendars. It's add. Add a new smart mailbox in this case. So similar to rules, we're going to tell it if it meets this term and condition, it's going to go into this mailbox. So I'm going to just call it today. And I'm going to just say if the message was received today, move it into today. So there you go. Okay, some sort of a Gmail sign-in block, whatever that may be. Okay, so it's a very easy way to do it. Now, what I want to show you is something important that you should be aware of here. See this message from Google? Okay, watch this. I'm going to go into my main mailbox here, and you can see it's right there. It's first, right? When I delete it from the smart mailbox, check it out. Okay, actually, I'm sorry. That's the one that's an old one. I had two in a row. Okay, so if I go back here, you'll notice that's gone. That's just an old one. So it does, in fact, delete it. The next thing I want to show you is about folders. Now, folders are basically just a place where you can store stuff. A lot of people will store receipts. I personally store all my travel plans in a folder. And there's a couple different ways to do it, but it's a manual process. We're going to go to, once again, the plus symbol, and we're going to go to New Mailbox. Okay? The first thing it's going to ask you is, where do you want this folder to be? I strongly advise you not to use this option. Here's the reason why. If you choose on my Mac and you use other devices like an iPhone or an iPad, you are not going to have access to those messages. Instead, if you use something like Gmail, just click on where it says Gmail. It'll store it in the server. That way it synchronizes across all devices. So let's just call it travel, just as an example. Hit OK. And if you look here on the left-hand side, okay, we have all of these default folders, and it just added travel right here. Okay, so now what I can do is I can go through my inbox and I can manually drag and drop messages from one into the other. You can also do this, by the way, from your phone. There's a little button at the bottom, where it says reply. One of them is move, and you can move it into a mailbox. Okay, just a really easy trick. One question someone had asked me earlier was about moving folders, like from one email account to the other. So let me show you this. See how we have some here that are listed for Comcast and some that are listed for Gmail? You can actually move these around. So you can drag and drop mailboxes from one account into the other. My advice, though, is to do it slowly, because when you do that, it's got to synchronize everything in the background with their server. So it takes a long time. So if you're going to move entire folders, do it very slowly. Next thing I want to show you, let's see here, is a few different junk tricks. Okay, first one is a really, really easy one. So by federal law, at least here in the U.S., if you get on a junk mail list, they are required to give you a one-click option to unsubscribe. So if you scroll to the very bottom of the email, many times you'll see it says right here, please unsubscribe here, and here's a hyperlink. There's an exception to the rule with this. If it's one of those pornographic or Viagra, e-blasts, a lot of those you cannot actually unsubscribe from. They don't play by the rules, and unfortunately there's no enforcement out there for this kind of stuff. There's also some back-end tricks that you can use to get out of junk mail. Now, the only downside to these is that they will only run really if your computer is on. I wish, Tim Cook, if you're out there, please build these features into the iOS devices, because that would be really nice. I don't want to have to keep my Mac on in order for these rules to work. So if you go here into, once again, we're in System Preferences. Okay, we have junk mail, third item. This is what I typically recommend to most people. Check where it says Enable Junk Mail Filtering and move it to the junk mailbox. Okay, that way it's still there. You have time to look through it and make sure that there's no legitimate email that may have just been accidentally marked as junk. Okay, so I would do that. The other thing you may want to do is go here under Accounts. Okay, and for each of your email addresses, you have these 3 tabs: Account Information, Mailbox Behaviors, and Advanced. I would go into Mailbox Behaviors for each account, okay? And if you look at all of these here, this is usually somewhere around what I tend to recommend for most people. This one you might change to never, okay? But by storing this information on the server, which you'll see I have checked here for every one of these, if I'm on the go and I don't have my laptop and I need to possibly see if an email has accidentally gone into my junk mail, I want to have the ability to retrieve it. That's why I personally do this. Now, some people for this one right here choose to do a month old, and I can completely understand that. It's actually really not a bad idea. So what this means is that if a message is marked as junk, if it's 1 month old, it's going to automatically delete itself out. It's gone, right? Another thing also here with trash. Some people, especially those who are not in business, like the trash to automatically empty after it's a month old. First of all, you should know email does not take up a lot of space, despite what you might think. In fact, your iMessages usually take up significantly more. Calendar also surprisingly takes up a lot of space. So I typically recommend saying to do never here. I will show you how to manually clear it all out in a moment. Okay, so what this is going to do is basically when you get in a message and it comes in as junk, okay, it's going to go into a special mailbox here called junk. And depending on, I won't be able to really totally reenact this for you, but with a lot of these, when they come in, you'll see a thing at the very top right that says, Mail thinks that this message is junk. You can either leave it, I believe, or say mark as not junk. If you say mark as not junk, it's going to automatically, when that person or company emails you again, it's going to go into your legitimate inbox. Okay? If you want to move it, by the way, out of junk, all you literally have to do is drag it and drop it back into your inbox. Whether yours says inbox, or in my case, it has multiple accounts. And don't worry, we'll go over how to set that up in a moment. So if this is legit, I'll just use myself here as an example. Okay? I can drag and drop that back into my email, and that way it stays there. Okay. Let's see here. Next thing I want to do is show you how to customize the toolbar. Okay. So right up here, this gray section is a toolbar. Also, when you create a new message, this is a toolbar. These can be customized. So for example, people who like to kill the environment, print emails, if they really want it, you can add a print button. Okay. All you have to do is, once again, secondary click in this area, and you should see this icon and text, icon only, text only, hide toolbar. If you ever go into your email and you see this, frankly, I don't even know why this is an option. What's the point? Unless you're like trying to prevent yourself from sending it. Maybe if it's an angry email to your ex. But if you ever see this, all you have to do to fix it is right click in this space. Secondary click, and change it back to either any of these top options. Okay, so that we have a send button again. The last option, though, is customize. So, for example, if I want to add the print feature back to a new message, I can take print right here and drag it and drop it into this top menu bar wherever I want. and it'll just stick there. Okay? There's a few other options here. I tend to think that the way it comes by default is usually pretty good for most people, but if you need any of those options, just know that they're all available to you there. And the same thing applies to this toolbar right here. Okay, so you can customize. There's a few more options here in this case. Okay, for example, there is a one-click add to contacts. I just tend to find it easier to hit the little arrow instead. That's just what I do. Next feature, can I do a quick survey for those of you who are here live? Oh my God, we have so many questions coming in. Okay, quick survey. How many people here know how to dictate? Automatic dictation. I'm not entirely surprised that about a little more than a third, maybe about 40% do not. So all the more importance to go over it. If you are running a Mac that is running operating system 10 point, I want to say 7 or later, and by the way you find it is Apple icon about this Mac, you can dictate to your computer. You don't need Dragon Dictation. You don't need any other pieces of software out there. It comes built into the Mac. As far as how well it does it, the different features of it, that depends on which version. This is part of the reason why I tend to people at this point, at this date in time, that it's a good idea to upgrade to Yosemite. So if you go into the Apple icon, top left of your Mac, second item down, System Preferences. Okay, from here, go down here towards the middle, towards the bottom, and it has Dictation and Speech. The way you're about to see it is how I tend to recommend it to my clients. So you want Dictation turned on. To use enhanced dictation, what this allows you to do is to use it when you're not connected to the internet. If you are running extremely low on space, you may not want to use this option. Shortcut. This is what I've always referred to this as a trigger key. Okay, it's just my own little terminology. By default, it's set to function key. That's the little key for most of you. It's the bottom left of your keyboard that says FN. Personally, I like to use Command twice. That's just my preference, but you can really do whatever you want. So what this means is that when I double tap my Command key, it's going to start listening to me, and I can just simply talk. Now, it tends to be for me a little bit slow because I am doing a live class right now, but I want to show you how it works. And even though I'm showing you this in the context of email, this applies to the entire computer. You could be in Word, Pages, anything, and this will work. So you can see here my cursor is blinking, which means if I type, it's going to appear. Okay. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to double tap my Command key. At that point, and it may be a little difficult for you all to hear it, it's going to ding at me. Once it dings, I can start speaking. You can also speak punctuation. You can say next paragraph. And when you're done, you can either tap your trigger key again, or there's a little done button that you can click. So let's give it a shot. Note the microphone at the bottom right. Dear Mark Collier, comma, next paragraph. It was so great having you visit our office in Provincetown, Massachusetts. Come back anytime, period. Next paragraph, David Cox. Cool, right? Like I said, the delay from what you just saw is usually not that bad. It's just because I'm supporting 500 people right now. So there you go, and you can dictate that through, you can do Facebook, email, whatever you want. Really, really cool feature, especially when I'm working with some of my clients who are a bit older. They tend to really love that feature. It just doesn't work well when you have the TV on in the background. So let's hit not save. Next feature I want to mention briefly, and if you want to explore this, we have a whole class on Evernote. For those of you who have an email, should we just call it an email situation? Okay, especially those of you in business and need to categorize different things. One thing you might want to be aware of that Evernote gives you the ability to do is Evernote gives you a unique email address where you can send or forward messages to, which will be saved into Evernote automatically. So for example, if I get emailed from one of our members about this really great idea for a class, what I will usually do is I tend to organize my notes in Evernote. So I will forward that email to a special email address that I have saved for my Evernote account, and that way when I open up Evernote it loads and it's not taking up space anymore in my email. If you want to check that out, you can see our whole class on Evernote. I'll put a link in the description of the video. Let's see here. I want to show you how to create a second email address. Okay, you'll see here that we have 2 listed. For a lot of you, may have 1. And believe it or not, I got this question from quite a few people. How do I add a second email account? You can. Go back to Preferences. So Mail, Preferences. Look down here at the bottom left. Notice we're under Accounts right now. There's a little plus symbol right here. Click that little plus symbol. And at this point, if you have any of these services up here, it just means that it has all of the settings pre-programmed. It also has quite a few others. You'll have to click Add Other Email Accounts. So there is a chance you may need to enter in email server settings. I just want you to be aware of that if you are using some sort of a service, for example, GoDaddy or Bluehost, where they give you multiple options. Do you want to use POP settings or iMAP? Please, for the love of God, do iMAP. It's so much better. But if you're using an email provider like, if you're using an internet provider like Comcast or AT&T or Verizon, a lot of those settings these days are all automatic, so you don't actually need to know the server settings to get into that. Just in case any of you out there are in fact using Comcast, since they are, kind of a conglomerate these days, Comcast recently updated from POP to iMAP. So if you notice that your Comcast emails are not syncing, what you have to do is basically save all of those emails into something like a folder. Okay, and then delete your email account and recreate it, and it will recreate with the new iMAP settings. You may want to call a Comcast rep to help you with that if you need help. Next thing I want to show you here is, deleting multiple emails at once. Some people know how to do it, some people don't. It's worth reviewing. What I'm about to show you is just simply how to select multiple, emails, okay, or multiple files. This works with everything. So if I hold the Command key on my Mac, I'm able to select multiple items at once. So I could select this, and this, and this, and this, okay? And if I hit the Delete key right now, all of those are gone. I'm going to undo that. Or actually, I won't. Okay? If you have a list of emails that you need to delete all at once, so they're all in a row, you can click on the first item, hold the Shift key, click on the last item, and then hit the Delete key. Now one of you emailed me earlier asking, how do I wipe out all of the trash in Gmail? So I'm going to show you a way to do it. The only little word of warning is if you have like tens of thousands of emails, this can kind of overload the server. So anytime you're making major changes to email, don't quit out of it when you've finished, because it's still doing things in the background that you can't see. Okay, so for example, if I want to go into, let's see, I'm sorry, not there. Let's go into my, where would I have a lot? Okay, okay, trash. Let's go there. Okay, so pretend there's a lot of emails here. Obviously, there aren't. What you can do, one trick you should be aware of, is if you hit Command A as in Apple, that is the universal command for select all. So you'll notice every single email here is selected. So if you hit Command A and then hit Delete, it's deleting everything. Once again, just please leave the computer on for a while. Maybe, depending on how many emails, it might be an hour even, just so it can sync those changes with Gmail's server. Because if you cut it off, it's not going to have time to do it, and you're going to see them all basically reappear in front of you. Okay, next topic, migrating email. Ooh, this is a fun one. Not. Okay, migrating email can definitely be a nightmare to people who don't know how to do it, so I'm going to try my best to help you out here. So I'm going to use this as the example, moving from Comcast to Gmail. And obviously we're dealing with a lot of kind of dummy messages here. Forgive me, I'm just going to move a bunch around just so I have some more to play with. So when you want to move from one email service to the other, here's how I usually recommend doing it. You want to have both accounts in Apple Mail. So this Comcast is going to represent the old. This is the account that's being closed down. Gmail represents the new account that's being created. Okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to select all of your Comcast messages as soon as they sync in the background. I'll just use this one in the meantime. Okay, select all, again, Command A, and you can drag them and drop them. There they come. Those are the ones that I just moved over. Okay, so select all. They're all there. And we're going to drag and drop them into Gmail. Okay, so by doing that, if this old option is POP, You've just moved it into an iMAP account so that it's now going to sync automatically. What I would then also recommend that you do is, with pretty much every email service out there, there's no pretty much, there is a way to access your email through the web or through a program like Apple Mail. In the case of Comcast, you would be going to comcast.net. When you sign in through the web, in settings or account options, they use different terminology, there's a way to auto forward your messages. So what you would do is tell Comcast, hey, if I get a new email in, I don't want it going to this email account. I want it to auto forward to my correct email address. The other option that some people will use instead is, while you're in that same screen, you would also see an autoresponder. Now, people use autoresponders a lot of times when they're away on vacation. Trust me, every time I send out an e-blast, I get a million of them. But what you can do is automatically email people back, letting them know you are no longer using that email address, and here's the new email address. The downside to doing that is if a spammer gets a message back that you've changed your email address, guess what? They now know about it. So you're going to start to receive spam there. So I tend to typically recommend the forward option instead of auto reply. It's just, safer for your own security. And then what you can do is, after a couple of months, delete that old account. Okay? So that's a little bit about moving email accounts. The other thing I want to mention is, for some of you who are PC users, okay, I get this question all the time, and it is a nightmare to deal with. I want to give you a really strong recommendation. If you are moving from a Windows PC to a Mac, especially for those of you who use Outlook, okay, Outlook can be a beast to deal with. So Outlook uses this file format called PST, whereas Apple Mail uses a file format called Mbox. And there are plenty of people, when this video goes to the internet and it's on YouTube, there are going to be plenty of people out there who are going to disagree with me. I'm giving you my advice based on what is easy, okay? It's not that it's free, but it is easy. So if you go into Outlook, it's fairly simple for most people to export all of their information into a PST file. And basically that PST file doesn't just contain your email, it also contains your contacts and your calendars. There's a great little app. You have to buy it, and it's not inexpensive, but it's worth it. If you put a value on your time, it's worth it. Go to the Apple menu, App Store. The name of the app, which is, I believe, $29, is called PST Converter Pro. Okay, here it is right here. It's very, very simple for the average person, believe it or not, to do this. Okay, so it's going to just automatically move all of that stuff from the Windows world into the Mac world. Very, very simple. Like I said, you can do this manually. It is a nightmare to do it. So please save yourself a little bit of headache and a few gray hairs at the same time. Or pulling out a few hairs, I should probably say. I want to go over viewing and layout options, okay? You may have been noticing that up to this point I've been actually using the old way of viewing messages, and some of you, I'm sure, in the chat have asked, how did you do that? So there are two different basic ways to view your email in Apple Mail. The first is this list view, which is considered older, or you can go to the new view. If you go into Preferences, we have Viewing right here. Note the very first item, which I have checked, which is Classic Layout. If I undo it, we get this. If you ever run into this problem, by the way, I didn't mean for this to happen, but this is actually a good thing, where you can't see the message, there's a really thin bar right here with a little dot right there. You can drag this over, okay? So now I have my message here. Just adjust the size of the windows, okay? So you've got your preview of your message here. You've got your actual message here. For those of you who are curious, I actually do prefer this view right here. Some people who are just used to the old way, they like the old way. If you do want it, once again, Mail, Preferences, Viewing, and check this top option here. And that'll make it look like the traditional method, which was done away a couple years ago. Let's see here. Also I want to mention, let's go back to the old way of viewing this for just a moment. There's one other thing I want to show you here. For those of you who do like this view, again, may be very difficult for those of you who are live to see this. There is a very thin bar that separates these two areas. If you click it and drag it, you can choose how much space each side takes up. So a lot of people like to have more viewing room for the actual email and less for the preview. Okay. Another thing about organization. Once again, see, we have from, subject, date received. Okay, there are other ways to organize it, and you should know that if you click on these, that is going to change how it is organized. So when I search by subject, okay, the email that has a number in it is going to be first, and then followed by A, right? If I click it again, it's reversed. So now W is at the top and 6 is at the bottom. Same goes for who it's from. You can organize it alphabetically. Most people organize it by date, which would make sense. So if you click on it once, okay, it's going to be the most recent emails at the top, older ones at the bottom. If you click it again, it'll reverse that order. The other methods that you can organize is if you secondary click in this thin white area. These are other things that you can organize. You can say show attachments. So when I do that, see this one right here, which has a little paper clip? Okay, that's really just the graphic right there. Okay, and that's where, like I said, if you have a signature, that's where it can be a real pain in the butt. It's going to show that every email has a signature. Okay, and a few other options that you can choose right here, just by secondary clicking. Let's see. Choosing which email address is used when you create a new message or reply. So by default, when you hit reply, it's going to reply from that email address. So if you have multiple email accounts here, like I have Gmail and I have Comcast, okay? When I'm clicked on Comcast, it's just Comcast email that's going to be listed here. When I click on Gmail, it's just Gmail. When I click on Inbox, it's the two combined, okay? So when you hit reply, it's going to reply to whichever email address it was sent to. However, when you create a new message, you can tell it to use a default address. To do that, go once again back to Preferences, but this time we're going to go into Composing right here. And you'll see right here, Send New Messages From, and you can choose which account you use. So I'll just use Plays Well with Sharks. For those of you who are curious, that's the dummy email address I created for when I was on Shark Tank. Hit New Message, okay, and notice it's from that email address. If you want to switch it, you can just simply click here and switch from one to the other. Next thing I want to do is show you about inserting photos and how to downsize them. So I'm going to create a new email here. I'm going to attach a few photos. So there's a couple different ways. You can either hit attach and manually find the photo, or you can use Photo Browser, okay, which is basically going to launch either the Photos app, okay, or you can go into iPhoto. I had to do a system restoration last night, so I'm going to use iPhoto right now just to get access to these. And I'm just going to pull in a bunch of photos here, way more than the average person would. And I'm just going to drag and drop them in. Pretend you didn't see that. Okay. Notice, see this little red thing here? Message size, 63.9 megabytes. Yeah, that's not what we call email friendly. So in terms of what most people consider to be courteous, okay, usually you want to try to keep your email to under 5 megabytes. Some people will say up to 8. But when you do more than that, especially if you send a lot of photos to someone, if they're on cellular data and they go to download those photos, they just blew through a lot of their data just to get your photos. So instead what you can do is built right into Apple Mail, it will automatically resize them for you. So see right here it says image size. Just by going from actual to large, check it out. We just went from a giant amount down to 4.8 megabytes. That's giant shrinkage. That's like jumping into the ocean right now, folks. Yes, I just did that joke right now. If I go from large to medium, you'll see it shrinks it down even further. Typically, I actually keep it at large. Insert obvious joke here. Okay? So that's usually what I like. But again, if you can keep it 5 to 8 megabytes, that's pretty good. The only real exception to the rule is if the person's going to be printing the photos, in which case it might be a better idea to, let's say, use Dropbox instead to send a group of photos. And if you want to learn about that, we have a great class that pairs well with this class, all about that. You know how like certain food items pair well together, like chocolate and wine, or meat and wine, and everything else and wine, and also everything else and chocolate. Dang it, Mail. Come back. Okay. Well, we have some classes that do that too. And one of them is I just taught a class on iCloud. It's called All About I want to say it's all about iCloud and Dropbox, and I'll put a link once again to that class in the description of this video for those of you who care to learn more about that. Dropbox, definitely one of the most important tools for anyone in business, in my opinion. Let's see here. Next one, I want to talk about sending to a group of people, okay? Now, this is tricky because we have an international crowd here and laws are different around the world. So if you are a business, okay, and you are emailing all of your customers, it is actually illegal to do it through an email, through just a traditional email. So if you send it to all of them, even if you CC them, that is technically speaking illegal. The reason why is, first of all, you're violating privacy laws, because what's going to happen is this, and I'll give you a real story of someone who didn't know this and accidentally did it. So you all probably know I live in Provincetown, Massachusetts, the very tip of Cape Cod, and we had a business here that I'm a fan of, and they did just this. They emailed all of their customers, okay? And the problem is that when you send it to or you CC, which is carbon copy, they can see each other's emails. Well, one person on that list was not a fan of them. So what happened was this person wrote a really, really nasty note and hit reply to all. So immediately this business had to do some serious damage control because all of their customers just saw this really, really nasty negative review. And frankly, it's probably some of their best customers since they were on their email list. So if you're emailing a small group of people, like let's say your friends, okay, and let's say you even have 100 friends, please show some courtesy and use BCC, blind carbon copy. Now, when you do this, what you want to do is send it to you. Send it to your own email address, but you're going to blind carbon copy everyone else. It's considered courtesy. Now, if you have a lot more than that, more than 100 people that you need to email, you might want to consider a service like the one that we use. And I'm going to make a small request here, and I like to be very open about this. We have an affiliate account with these folks. There's this great little service called MailChimp. And MailChimp is a competitor to other services out there like Constant Contact. I'm just personally a bigger fan of MailChimp. I have nothing against Constant Contact. I've just been using them longer, and I find them to be pretty good. If you decide to go with MailChimp, there will be a link in the description of the video. You can sign up with them for free. If you have under 2,000 subscribers, it's free. More than that, you've got to pay for it. Right now, I have to pay over $300 a month just to email all of you. So the more people you get, the more that price comes up. But then again, we're talking tens of thousands of people for me to email. So it ends up being worth it. But MailChimp is a great, great little service. If you're a business, I strongly recommend you check it out. Next thing I want to do is something that someone actually here had emailed me about, and I wanted to include in this class, which is sending an email to a specific group of people. So let's just pretend that you have let's say you have a dinner group, okay? A bunch of people, you all get together, you have a potluck, something like that, and you just want to very quickly be able to send it to all of them without having to type each one of their email addresses one at a time, right? Well, here's how you can do it. Go into the Contacts app, okay? Someone looks like a little brown book right there. Go into All Contacts. And what I'm going to do is this. See up here it says File. We're going to go to File. And the second item down is New Group. Excuse me. So you can call your group whatever you want. I'm just going to call it Dinner Group. Okay. And from here, you're going to have to go back into All Contacts. Obviously, these are all fake. And what you're going to do is you're going to drag and drop your contacts into that group. Okay. So I've got a bunch of fake ones here. Oops. Just throw this on there. So when I go into dinner group, see how all of these names are here? Now, I want to make sure that all of these, okay, that one doesn't have an email address, so I'm hitting delete. That one doesn't. So there should be 3 people in this group when we're done, okay? So once that group is in contacts, check this out. You can close out of contacts, go into mail. I think it's, there we go. New message. And instead of typing out their email addresses one at a time or even their names, I'm just going to type in the word dinner. And group auto fills in. And when I hit the enter key, voila, all of their names pop up. And that would work if I send it to CC or BCC. Pretty cool, right? Next thing I want to show you is something, once again, I left this out of the last class. And for those of you who are in a similar situation to what I have to go through, where I'm usually having to send the same response to 1 million people, this can be a lifesaver, okay? I want to show you how to create something which I refer to this as a trigger phrase. I'm sure there's a real name for it, but that's just what I use. That's what I call it. So a trigger phrase means that I can type a couple of keystrokes on my keyboard, and it's going to automatically write. It could be a sentence, it could be an entire paragraph, or a page of text. So, for example, I could do a thing. Let me think. Let's say I want to have kind of a default thank you message to someone for making a contribution to PC Classes Online, right? So I could make it so that I type in just a couple keystrokes and it sends a complete message with a little thank you note. Here's how you do it. You actually do it through system preferences. And what's really cool is this feature syncs. So if you have an iPhone or an iPad, you can do this on every single device and beyond just mail too. You can do it in documents. From here, I know it sounds a little weird, you're going to actually go into keyboard. From keyboard, you're going to go into text. Okay? So watch this. This might be a little bit tricky, but I'm going to try to explain it slowly. I'm going to hit that little plus symbol at the bottom left. Okay? So replace is your trigger phrase, and then with is whatever the full message is. Whoever is live here emailing me, please stop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a phrase. So let's say I want to make it. I'm trying to think. I'll just do TY. Okay, something you would probably never ever do something this simple because it's TY. No, let's do something better. Let's do thank you, but it's all one word. Okay, that's probably a better example. You want this, by the way, I should mention, you want this to be something you would not normally type. So it might mean initials, okay, or it might mean combining words together. So I'm going to combine that with, and if you'll give me 1 moment, I'm going to dictate a quick phrase here just so you can see how this works. Thank you so much for your contribution to support PCClassesOnline.com. We work really hard to do a good job, and this money helps us continue to offer our free live classes to the public. Thank you for being a part of what we're trying to do. Period. Okay, so that's there. So watch this. I click out of it. I just click out of where that was, and it's saved. So now, when I go into email, let's do this one right here. Let's just create a new message. Watch this. I type the word thank you, space, and it auto-fills in. And I can do that once again. I can do that from my phone. I can do that from my iPad, anywhere. It's a really, really cool feature. And you can create as many as you want. So I've done that for, God, I can't even tell you how many I've had in the past. Unfortunately, one of the ones I have to do more of than any is explaining to people that I am not their private tech support. So trying to find a way to phrase that in a way that is not insulting is very, very difficult. So what I would like to do at this point is we have a live audience here. We have a lot. Mark has been receiving a lot of questions from folks. So what I'm going to do is end the class now and respond to those folks. I just want to say before we go, if you are watching us on YouTube, one of the even easier ways that you can show a little bit of love is if you hit that like button. In case you didn't know it, when you hit the like button on a video, it's basically your little way of tipping off YouTube that the video you just watched contains relevant content. Okay, so it helps us, it helps them. It's like a group hug. Okay, so hit that like button. If you haven't already done so, subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's free, folks. You can sign up for our newsletter on our website at PCClassesOnline.com. This is David A. Cox with PCClassesOnline.com. Class dismissed.